welcome to the Sailing My Magic channel. My name is Duke and I am solo sailing Magic, my 2015 Lagoon Catamaran, around the world. Bishop Pompallier was consecrated with responsibility for all of Western Oceania. Pompallier was an interesting guy. He stood 6 foot 2 inches tall in splendid robes and wasn't trying to get the women. And he had a medal from the Napoleonic Wars. Jean-Baptiste Pompallier was the first vicar apostolic to visit New Zealand and founded 16 missions. A major accomplishment was printing thousands of books in Maori when the Maori had no written language. He was one of the founders of the Society of Mary, which was also called the Marists. His mission as a French Catholic bishop was to oversee the French islands in Oceania. The Anglicans were printing books in Maori, including passages of the Bible. Pompallier didn't know how to print things, and he and his crew had to learn during the voyage back to New Zealand. Instead of the usual 8-month voyage from England to New Zealand, they stopped at most of the French islands, and it took 13 months. In 1839, Pompallier bought the property from Ben Turner and established the first Catholic mission and the first school in Costa Rica. In 1842, the printery building was completed and printing was beginning. They also had to do the tanning of leather for the covers of the books. In 1845, there was the onset of the musket wars. Pompallier, being tall and wearing his gray and purple resplendent robes with the jeweled cross and rings, worked out part of the agreement to leave the Anglican Church and Pompallier mission alone should fighting erupt. Both the Anglicans and the Catholics were producing books for the Maori and teaching them not only how to read, but other useful farming ideas. Pompallier's mission produced nearly 40,000 books in 4 years. There are 2 printing presses on the property now. The one you're looking at right now can print 8 pages at one time. The one upstairs can only do 4 pages at one time. This is a German model I discussed in a different video, but it's downstairs, and the type layout and everything was upstairs. That's why they had the smaller press up there. You might ask, why would they not have the lead type in the same place as the biggest printing press? The main reason for that is during the musket wars, both the British soldiers and the Maori warriors wanted lead to make musket balls. Unfortunately, islands in the Pacific are known to be very short on metals. Now, this interesting feature over here is a form that they use to make the walls for the printery. And the statue here, the Maori were amazed at a statue that looks so lifelike. Now, please click on like and subscribe. It's free and it helps. But you're looking at a wall here that was made by this rammed earth method. It was a method that they used in Lyon, France, so the bishop was familiar with it. You pack the mud into this form, beat it down, let it harden, and then you raise the form up a few feet and did the same thing again. Now, that opening there in the ceiling is so that they could pass the lead type up and down, so that there would be none there to steal. The doors were locked and the ladder pulled up. And this is out back here where the tanning vats are for the leather. The black willow bark that you see there produces tannic acid, just like oak does. But the black willow is commonly used here. And they had the different stations out here, like fleshing. They would put the leather on the board there and scrape the fat and extra flesh off the back and make the leather ready and throw it in the vat with the black willow bark. And they had to time it right. You wanted the hairs to fall off, but not for the leather to rot. So they had to keep a close eye on that. And when they dried it out, then they had to first stomp on the leather to try and soften it a bit. And then they would move it over to these other stations where they had what was commonly known as the arm breakers. They would roll the leather back and forth and put some fat on it so it'd be supple, and put these blocks of wood with ridges on them. Like I said, it was called an arm breaker because it was horrible work, but then you had to rub the leather back and forth to soften it up instead of being the stiff hides. And at the same time, they were stepping on that platform with another piece of hide on it, trying to get it started, and then they'd move over to this station and continue the work with all these different kinds. And they would also peel off suede. You make suede from the back. It's the lighter part of the leather. And apparently you can get 2 layers of suede off of each hide. And they didn't just use cow hide here. They had calf hide, goat hide, sheep hide. At one time, there were many more buildings here. That's a book bindery, and there's some orchards there, and the gardens that were installed later. Now, upstairs, they had the typeset. That's the composition room. And some interesting phrases come out of that. Now, this is the smaller press, and like I said, it can only do 4 pages at a time, and they would print them on one bigger sheet of paper. Everything is functional, and we printed this photo of the print shop on the small press. The capital letters are in the upper case. This is where you get that phrase. And there's a wood block cutting of the house, Pompallier house. And what you do is you print pages 1, 3, 5, and 7 on one side of the paper. You wait 2 days, let it dry, and then you print pages 2, 4, 6, and 8 on the other side. There's that hole that goes down below. They had a rope there so they could lower the lead typeset down to the big press when it was ready. Here's how you print it. You push really hard down on it, and you've got to roll that out, lift that up, and you're left with a piece of paper there that's stuck onto the print material. Both the other fellow and I ended up with a print from this. I like to be a little more hands-on, but I think it did a great job for a 200-year-old machine. And this is the Tree of Life. Bishop Pompallier was a believer in how the things led together. There's a picture of him in later years. He was here until he was 68 years old. Then he returned to Europe and died there at 70. Now this is the bindery. So they have the different texts in Maori, and they would put them together. They had to make little notches in it to get the string through. And then once they had the string in it, they would pound the paper to make it a curved shape on the back, and then go ahead and add some glue over the top of it. To me, it seemed like the most difficult job there was the binding. Once the binding was completed and they had a piece of cardboard on each end, that the binding would go through the cardboard also. The reason for the curve on the back is so that you could open the book without it being hunched. It would lay flat that way. And then they had different hides that they could use for the cover of the book. One of the most commons was sheep hide because it was a thinner, lighter hide. But goat hide was the black one there, and on the far right is calf hide. All of them were used at one time or another. New Zealand is known for having lots of sheep. So then they would glue it and wrap it around there, fold one piece of paper over the cardboard so it wasn't really visible, and they would have a completed book. I said they made approximately 40,000 books in 8 years. Now, upstairs above that, they have a museum, and it shows some of the different types of printing that they did, and that was interesting. They have an interesting way of putting on the exhibits. You have to like shine a flashlight through it. This is the original packed earth. The one downstairs, I believe, is the reproduction area, and it was done better, quite frankly. This is a small cannon that is an actual cannon from the time. And the composition room, they're talking about it and the typesetting. Like I said, there was many phrases from typesetting. Now there's pipes that the people used at the time of white clay. And you can see the light shining through the side there. You take a flashlight and shine it through a hole and it illuminates something. These are china from different eras that the building was used. Notice the one said India on it, and a clock from the time. I'm going to discuss about the different uses of it in just a moment. That looks like a Singer sewing machine down there, but that's a really old hand-cranked one. Amazing that that stuff is still around. More china from a different era. And I was not sure about that one. I kind of thought it was a brush, but towards the end there, one of the ladies liked to organize tennis and croquet and stuff. She wanted it to be a fancier house. So anyway, that's the Pompallier Mission and Printery. There's also a French cafe on the grounds. The British did want everybody to be a member of the Anglican Church, but Pompallier went over for the Waitangi Treaty and added in the 4th article, which gave everybody the right to worship in whatever way they wanted. In 1856, the property was sold to James Callaghan, who continued to work the property as a tannery. Hamlin Greenway bought the property in 1879, tore down several buildings, and planted the hedges and flower gardens. In 1905, Henry and Mary Stevenson set out the tennis lawn and the croquet court. Then in 1943, the New Zealand government acquired the mission and initially used it as a barracks for World War II and later an officer's mess. In 1987, they discovered the tanning vats set into the hillside, and that led to archaeological investigations and a decision for extensive restoration. In 1993, the property reopened after restoration, and it is now New Zealand's oldest working factory. The bishop was a member of the Society of Mary. They didn't have as strict a view over Catholicism as some of the other congregations. As a result, he had more empathy for the Maori and their culture. This endeared him to the Maori, and even after he died in France, New Zealanders would stop and tend to his grave, and eventually they requested permission and received it to disinter him and move him back to New Zealand, where he was reburied. Enjoy your sundowner.